was that day that I met Kelly Turner.
Kelly Turner is Derek Hamilton's strongest alibi witness. Turner was running a talent agency at the time of the murder and later became an admired New Haven police officer. At the time, Hamilton thought he could help Turner with her talent booking business in New York, where he had connections.
So we agreed to meet the next morning, 11:15, 11 o'clock. Kelly came over to my room, picked me up, took me from here to the talent agency. I explained to her what I could possibly do for their company, gave her the contact information that I had.
Cash had already been shot by the time you had that meeting.
Well, actually, we was in the meeting when Cass was shot in Brooklyn.
But some question Hamilton's story.
There are some people who believe that the alibi is cooked up. They believe that Derek has made inconsistent alibis, that the alibi witnesses are people who know him and are biased toward him. I don't believe there is anything inconsistent about the alibi witnesses that Derek has put forward.
Jonathan Edelstein is Derek Hamilton's post-conviction attorney.
I took a look at his file, and I was convinced of two things. First of all, that he was innocent, and second of all, that the way the courts had treated him made me sick, in terms of them not even being willing to hear his witnesses. And I decided I was going to try and get some help from Mr. Hamilton.
A lot of people just can't wrap their heads around prosecutors withholding evidence or doing things that are not by the book. And for the most part, I think prosecutors, of course, care very much about the integrity of their jobs. But we've seen enough examples where some prosecutors don't play by the rules. But because of prosecutorial immunity, which is the doctrine that prevails in this country, prosecutors aren't held accountable.
The theory behind immunizing prosecutors from being sued is we don't want to chill the prosecutors' strong, courageous efforts to prosecute bad people. So absolutely immune from civil litigation. Some prosecutors have been disciplined for their misconduct, but it happens infrequently.
In Tyrone Johnson's case, prosecutor Claude Stewart had committed a serious violation by not telling the court he knew where a key witness was, and Johnson was convicted for the murder of Leroy Van.
I understand you want justice. Everybody does, but you should want the right person to be in jail.
As he waited for sentencing, Johnson's best hope was to find victim Leroy Van's neighbor, Shanice Knight. She told police that she saw the killers and that Tyrone Johnson's photo did not match any of them.
Tyrone's family hires a private investigator who, before he's even sentenced, goes and finds Shanice Knight.
The gentleman that I seen killed Leroy was not Tyrone.
She also says that Claude Stewart himself had come to her job 4 days before he said in court that he had no idea where she was.
Two detectives came to my job.
What did they say?
They stated that if I was lying, that was perjury, 5 years. They tried to intimidate me.
Which basically means, if that's true, Stewart was flat out lying.
And Knight also says that she can discredit the key testimony from the prosecution's alleged eyewitness, her nephew Henry Hanley. Knight said Hanley was in her basement, asleep with his girlfriend, when the shots were fired, and she woke him up to tell him.
So she signs an affidavit to that effect, and they're able to file an appeal based on that, and the whole thing just blows up.
More of Prosecutor Stewart's case started to fall apart when Johnson's private investigator, Michael Race, interviewed Henry Hanley.
First thing he says to me is, I was just waiting to this day for someone to come up and speak to me about this.
And
Tells me the whole story.
Hanley recanted his testimony, saying that after being arrested for a probation violation, detectives pressured him to identify Tyrone Johnson. Then Assistant District Attorney Stewart coached him to make sure his story matched the prosecution's. It wasn't the first time District Attorney Stewart had been accused of playing dirty.
They find that 5 years before, he did something very similar in a different case. It didn't seem to have any impact. So that by the time Tyrone gets charged, he's working some of the biggest cases in the office.
But in Tyrone Johnson's case, Prosecutor Stewart's boss, the Queens District Attorney Richard Brown, stepped in.
So the Queens District Attorney agrees to vacate the conviction, which is an extraordinary measure. Stewart ends up being forced to resign. They refer him to a disciplinary panel. Claude Stewart was the only prosecutor, New York City prosecutor, in the last 10 years to be disciplined for misconduct. So this really is historic. And even though he ends up losing his license, it really does demonstrate how lax the oversight system is for prosecutors as well.
Despite a top prosecutor being removed and reprimanded for misconduct in Tyrone Johnson's case, it still didn't mean Johnson was going free. Richard Brown decided
Yay! Found it.
So he decided to retry him.
Nick of time there,
He
bud.
tried to talk with the Queen's DA's office about the
Happy
case, but
sleeping.
they declined.
Night night.